Hey guys, welcome back to another repair video. Today, I'm finally working on my Sega Dreamcast. It's taking me a while to complete this system and get all the accessories I need. I tend to buy faulty or untested consoles in bulk, so this guy's been sitting in my repair pile for a good while. But my patience finally paid off. I didn't have to go shopping for individual accessories for this unit. I ended up getting everything I need in that bulk purchase that I made a couple months ago. The system's in really nice shape. Here I have it hooked up to my capture card to test everything out. It powers up just fine. The fan's a little bit loud. Clock battery's not charging up, doesn't hold a charge. And when I tested this off camera, I thought the controllers were all dead, but I realized that if I actually wiggle the controller port around a little bit, it comes back to life. There might be a loose connection I need to take a look at. I'll know more once I open it up and take a look inside. And as far as the optical drive goes, unfortunately, it's not working. I have given the laser a gentle wipe down with some IPA, and I'm using a very clean disc, but the system just won't read it. So after saying please wait for about 10 seconds, nothing happens, and if I try and play the disc from the main menu, it just says insert disc. So there's a few minor things I need to look into, but I think this system's going to clean up really well with some TLC. I went ahead and bought a few things for this project. Here I have a GDEMU. It's an optical drive emulator. It's going to let me play games off of an SD card. Very nice piece of hardware. This is going to be a direct swap for the optical drive. Now I could try to repair the optical drive or source a replacement, but when I can play hundreds of games directly from an SD card for the same price, why bother? And here I have a kit to refurbish the controller board. It comes with a battery holder so that you no longer need to solder a battery directly to the main board. An RGB LED, pretty excited about that. We have a replacement resistor, a capacitor, and a resettable fuse. I'll talk more about this guy later when we're doing the install. Here I have a rechargeable battery. This is an ML2032, which is a direct replacement for the battery used in the system. And last but not least, a 200 gig SD card for all the games. Another minor issue to add to the repair list, it looks like the pins on this dial-up modem are a little bit mangled, so I'll straighten those out later. So I'm inspecting the components on the controller board up close, and granted the system's over 20 years old at this point, but that capacitor looks like it's in pretty decent shape. The capacitor is made by Rubicon, which is the cream of the crop when it comes to capacitors. The capacitor that came with the kit is a no-name brand. It's going to be inferior in terms of quality, so I decide not to install it. And I'm probably not going to use that resistor either. I go ahead and mark the three components that I'm going to desolder: the fuse, the LED, and the dead battery. I'm installing a battery holder so that in future, if the battery needs to be serviced, it can just be popped in and out. The RGB LED is just for fun. It's just a way for me to customize my unit. I didn't even need to wick the solder off. The LED just popped right out. And about that fuse, well, technically it's a fuse resistor, and mine hasn't blown, it's actually working. But this is a quirky component that I learned more about during my research of this project, and apparently one of the ways to easily pop that fuse is by using a bad controller. Now, I'm buying junk consoles all the time. I often don't know the history of the components or the systems that I'm buying. Compared to the average Dreamcast owner, the likelihood that I come across a bad or faulty controller is probably a little bit higher. So I'm replacing the fuse resistor with something known as a resettable fuse. And as the name implies, it's a fuse that resets itself when the system is powered off and then back on. So the consequences of using a faulty controller are greatly reduced. Having said all that, if your fuse resistor is fine, you can probably leave it alone in there. That's that little fuse resistor. You can see the letters A and K on the board denoting the anode and cathode. The shorter component leg is negative, so that goes into the cathode side. The fuse can go in either way, it doesn't matter. Alright, those three components are in, looking good. Now if you remember, when I tested the unit, the controller was acting up. I had to jiggle it around to get it to work. So here I'm testing all the controller pins, making sure none of them are broken. I'm taking a closer look inside the ports, making sure the pins aren't bent in any way, and everything checked out. The pins are solid, the internal pins are exactly where they're supposed to be. I think everything is good here. So I move on to shower the controller ports with some contact cleaner. Hopefully this should resolve the connectivity issues with the controller. I was almost sure I was going to find some broken or cracked pins that I'd need to reflow, but that wasn't the case. It was probably just some oxidation from years of storage that are interfering with the connection. Now, moving on to the power supply, we're going to do a bit of a cooling mod by removing the 12-volt regulator. The thinking here is that when you remove the optical drive and replace it with a GDEMU, you're essentially removing the 12-volt load from the power supply, and the power supply was never really designed to run without a 12-volt load, so the voltage spikes and it starts to overheat. Next item on the list is that noisy fan. Hopefully by cleaning it out, it'll quiet it down a little bit. I'm on the home stretch. I'm going to see if I can do something about those mangled pins on the modem. This is a dial-up modem, and obviously the technology is obsolete, and there's no official Sega Dreamcast online infrastructure that still exists, but there are ways to emulate a dial-up connection using broadband and get the system online, and believe it or not, there's a bunch of games that you can still play online by doing this. Not something I'm particularly interested in doing, but in the future, who knows. And the fuse on the modem's good. At least on the surface, it doesn't look like those mangled pins have done any damage. That was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. There are a few saved games on this VMU from the year 2000. That's someone's saves from 20 years ago, guys. I get such a kick out of that. And the GDEMU just slots in place where the optical drive used to go. Now, I've already prepared this SD card and I've filled it all the way up with games. You'll easily find in-depth tutorials that'll walk you through doing that step by step. Last but not least, the clock battery. And again, keep in mind, even though this is the same shape and size as a CR2032, this is an ML2032, which is a rechargeable version of that battery. This console was in fairly good shape, so I didn't feel the need to do a full teardown and shower the unit like I normally would, but I did give it a wipe down and made sure there was no debris that would interfere with the action of the buttons. And we are done.
Oh, isn't that lovely? Good.
How about that RGB LED, guys? That looks mighty fine to me, but let me know what you guys think. Alright, I'm going to show you guys how everything works and we'll try a couple of games. Now, none of this footage is sped up, so I want you guys to appreciate how quickly the system is about to start up. About 15 seconds from the moment you turn it on. I can use the triggers to do a fast scroll through the games. And each GDI image is just over a gigabyte, so I was able to fit 164 on this 200 gig SD card. That's not the entire library of NTSC games, but it's up there, and it's more than I'll ever want to play anyway. Now, I know you Dreamcast fanatics are probably waiting for me to fire up Marvel vs. Capcom 2, but guess what? I've never even played it. And when I owned a Dreamcast as a kid and my parents would let me go shopping for games, I certainly wasn't allowed to buy anything full price, and most of the popular games tended to be. I went to the bargain bin like a good little boy, and I picked out whatever was on sale. And one of those games was MDK, and man, do I love this game. I haven't played this game since owning it in childhood, and I was getting sidetracked preparing this video. For those of you who don't know this game, it's a really fun party puzzle game. It's an easy game to pick up, one round and you kind of figure out the mechanics, plug in 4 controllers and go head to head with your friends. People are going to have a good time. And one of the cool things that the GDEMU supports is in-game reset. So if you hold down ABXY and press start, it resets the game. And if you press start twice, it resets the GDEMU altogether. So you don't even have to get out of your chair to quickly reset the game or to start a new game altogether. This wouldn't be a Sega video without a little bit of Sonic, so let's go ahead and fire up Sonic Adventure. I don't know how you guys felt about this game, but the novelty kind of wore off quick. It is fun, definitely worth a play. The controls do feel a little bit clunky though. The camera doesn't feel very smart. It's kind of fighting against you at times compared to something like Super Mario 64, for example. And one of my minor peeves about this game is that there are some cutscenes that you can't skip through, and they can be a little bit painful to kind of sit through and listen to entirely. Well guys, thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly had a blast working on this system. If you own a Dreamcast, I highly recommend the GDEMU. This modded build rivals my modded Xbox. It's going to have a permanent place under my TV, and this is one of those systems that I'm going to be firing up on a very regular basis. Alright, take care guys. See you next week.